Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Clayton and James Show, where yesterday Clayton went to church to pray for Liverpool not to win, and he spent most of this morning working out how many more games the Liverpool have to fail to win before the title is in Arsenal's hands. My name is James. How are you, Clayton?
I am good. I feel like I should add some context to that.
That's
So,
up to you. I've just dropped you in it a little bit.
yesterday was my mum's birthday. My mum is very religious. She's a Catholic. I am not. I tend to flip between agnostic and being an atheist. But anyway, I always go to church on my mum's birthday because it makes her happy. And I could tell she was just like deep in thought, connecting to God and this and that. And in my mind, all I'm working out is permutations on, oh, I wonder what happens if Liverpool do this. I wonder what happens if they lose here. I wonder what happens if they draw here. I wonder what happens if we get to the end of Feb and we're this points tally. And I was just thinking, I've got an actual illness. Like, and then we come out of church and I mean, she knows I'm not like religious or anything, but she comes out, she's like, oh, how was it? Did you enjoy it? Did you pray? I was like, yeah, yeah. What do you think I prayed for? Like, all I was praying for was football related. I did wish my mum well. Obviously, I did pray for her, but yeah, that's all that was on my mind. I was thinking I have an actual illness, but yeah, I think we'll talk about it, right? In terms of Villa Liverpool, like I think that's just where my brain defaults to the what ifs. But I think you and I have spoken in detail on Patreon in terms of where my headspace is at, and nothing changed for me last night in terms of the wider context on things. But it's still fun to figure out the what ifs.
I mean, you've got an illness. I'm a Tottenham fan, so I don't know what I've got, mate. We are going to be talking Villa Liverpool in a moment. We're also going to cover the Champions League football from the last couple of days. We're going to have a little chat about Dissent, not a Jude Bellingham conversation, more a conversation about refereeing, partly because of Jude Bellingham's red card in La Liga at the weekend. Eurofocus this week takes us to Norway. And I've got an absolutely blinding, in my opinion, on this day, Clayton, from before you were even born. But yes, we will kick off with the Villa Liverpool game from last night, which Clayton so beautifully informed me before we started recording. Well, it's my mum's birthday, isn't it? So I didn't watch none of football yesterday.
Yeah, I we had family around and I had it on in the background. It was one of them, when everyone's doing the small talk and I'm kind of peeking around the corner like watching it. So I was flicking between Madrid and the Villa Liverpool game. But I mean, the summary I seem to have got from my friends and different circles is Liverpool unlucky not to win, missed a few chances. I saw Nunez's open goal. How's he not put that in? I have no idea. But Villa also looked like they had half chances in moments and got into the right areas without it necessarily looking like on a stats summary that it will show up. But it sounds like Liverpool were perhaps unlucky to drop points.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a positive performance wise from both teams. I think for Liverpool, you're hitting the stage of the season where every game kind of feels like must win. But I suppose if you kind of earmarked like the tough away games. Remember conversations we had even before Christmas. I was like, look at the away games Liverpool got left in like the second half of the season, and I think Villa's one you'd have earmarked. And went, well, if there's three or four games we don't win, you'd gone, yeah, draw at Villa would be one of them, and you go, it's okay. So it's a perfectly acceptable result. Villa haven't lost at home in the league since yourselves. And I think that's Villa's only home league defeat in the last 12 months. I think the only other teams to
Whoa.
win there are Olympiacos in the Conference League semi-finals and Crystal Palace in the League Cup. So going to Villa Park and winning is tough. And I think to say Liverpool deserved to win would be harsh on Villa because I could certainly imagine most Villa fans took away from last night. Yeah, I feel like we deserved something out of that. And I wouldn't argue that. And they very nearly won it right at the end through Donyell Marlon. It was a fun watch. Both teams had a lot of chance. I think Liverpool more so. I think the XG is quite heavily weighted because Darwin Núñez's chance is huge. That one model I saw had it at an XG chance of 0.89.
I saw that. Yeah.
And I don't think it was quite that big because he's got a player sliding in front of him. Of course he should score, but it's on his left foot. And I think it might have even been his first touch. He just come on. And at that moment, you're having that kind of concentration of just focusing on it in the target. Like, I don't think he's one of them in those moments. He's not like a cold killer. I don't think he relaxes in those moments. I think he feels the tension. And Arne Slot said after the game, he's like, we've got one player in the dressing room who is really, really sad and down. And he didn't need to say anything more to say it was Darwin Núñez. It's absolutely obvious. I probably maybe wouldn't come out and publicly say that. He will be handy, I think, for Liverpool somewhere along the path here
Of
because
course.
he's got something different. But I think Liverpool's performance in the game did go, I don't want to say downhill, regressed when he came on. They played tactically a little bit different last night.
What do they change?
Wasn't 4-3-3 to my opinion. It certainly looked like it at times, but I think Curtis Jones and Diogo Jota had kind of two unique roles where Jones sometimes was going to the left but was playing central. We saw the lineups and we kind of thought Darwin Núñez was going to be the left-sided forward. It wasn't that. Quite often it looked like a 4-2-2-2
Wait,
with
so did Darwin start?
no, that's what I said. The chance he missed, he'd just come on as a
Oh,
substitute.
oh, because I thought you said Darwin on the left, so I misheard
It's
you.
interesting, by the way. Diogo Jota missed an absolute sitter at 1-1 through going through 1-1 on goal, and no one talks about the Jota miss the way people talk about the Núñez miss.
Hadn't seen that one, to be
Jota's in
fair.
complete control of the ball, and he tries to bend it into the far corner. He shanks it about 15 yards wide,
Oh, wow.
and that was straight after Villa had equalised through Yuri Tielemans. So yeah, Salah and Jota really played like just high wide players. Jota was linking as a nine, but very much drifting left. When Liverpool had transitions and were turning over, particularly in the second half, the distance between the two forwards was humongous. There's no way they'd have been linking, and that was fine. They were trying to isolate, right? Villa and their high line, get them boys in over the top. Salah made some great runs from out to in as well. The old kind of classic Bloomberg run from the wide area into more central areas. He uses looked his usual threatening self. I don't know if it was just a strategy ploy for Villa because the way Villa played with their wide men and they can tuck them in so narrow and have direct runners in there. I spoke about that a lot after Villa beat us in the FA Cup. I don't know if there was a consciousness of that.
I was just going to
That
say that the way you described that, that's the first thing that came to my mind, especially like I know we beat Villa there, but the success they were having in running through central areas off the back of Party and stuff. I wonder if that was a consciousness from Liverpool. And like you said, you spoke about that after you played them. That's the way I interpreted it, having not seen it, but heard you describing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might have been. I feel like McAllister played a bit deeper. He seemed to be on the floor every 2 minutes in the first half, which I don't think was any fault for
As
himself.
in rolling
He,
around or
no,
injury.
he was either kicking someone up in the air or someone was kicking him up in the air. It just seemed to be that it was always Alexis McAllister involved. He's a player that I really like. The fantasy context on this, I think, first and foremost, that people will want to talk about is what now with the Arse man, because so many will be on slot and Emery and want to know whether to move it on. One obvious consequence of last night is that Crystal Palace at Fulham is now confirmed a bonus match. So if Oliver Glasner is your flavour rather than Ivan Juric or, well, actually, I don't need to do that, do I? The managers from the bottom four. If Oliver Glasner feels more like your flavour, which it probably will do in comparison to those four, that is available for you. As a reminder, Fulham versus Crystal Palace is our clash of correspondence this week with Lewis James and Rory McLoughlin-Dowd. Have that out for you early on Friday morning. I suspect Rory will say, go for it. I suspect Lewis will say, well, I've been on the best assistant manager over the last 2 weeks, and actually that's been Marco Silva.
Yeah. How many points was it? I saw a tweet. Was it like 30 something points for him?
They've had two bonuses in a row, haven't they?
Yeah.
Fulham, two
Smashed it
bonus
anyway.
victories, Newcastle and obviously Nottingham Forest. I'm interested to know if Lewis would consider going from Silva to Glasner. I hugely suggest he wouldn't. I think first and foremost, you want to try and work out what happens next, right? So let's start with Villa play Chelsea this weekend. And Chelsea clearly are not in a great moment at the currently. There's clearly some vulnerabilities there. They're missing Nicholas Jackson. They're now going to be without Madueke. If Villa can play to the intensity they played against Liverpool, I think Villa probably win. A
Yeah.
couple of caveats to that. One, Disasi is obviously ineligible. So there'd be serious question marks at the moment in terms of who would play centre back alongside Tyrone Mings, who's only just returned himself. Remember, Boubacar Kamara got injured recently, who'd been covering there as well. I don't know if Ezri Konsa has a chance of being back. Unai Emery kind of didn't really give it away to say he would definitively be back. So there's even a case they might have saved him for Chelsea, knowing that they're obviously going to be really short in that position. If Konsa played, that would be a huge boost. So I think that's really important for your team news aspect on Friday. Remember, Unai Emery, of course, will be late. You'll get the information about 2.5 hours before deadline, probably from Unai. the other context for Villa is, although this isn't a Champions League game, it would have felt like one, I think, in terms of the intensity, the quality of the opponent. And we do know Villa's record after Champions League games this season has been shady.
I had not considered that at all. That's a really good point.
Well, it's a 3 day turnaround, isn't it? You
Yeah, I
won't get it
lit
up as a statistic as a comparison, but Villa have suffered in games after having other intense games in the midweek
I'd
before.
be so intrigued to see psychologically if there's something in that from the player's perspective of the name of the competition versus the time it's played and stuff. Because yeah, you are right. They don't tend to do well from midweek games to weekend and stuff. But yeah, really intrigued to see
I
that.
also don't know if there would be any consequence of the fact, particularly considering Chelsea now have a different manager. But Chelsea played very well twice at Villa Park last year, winning there in a cup and in the league they drew 2-2 from 2-0 down, and they probably should have won the game. I think if memory might have been Disasi had a goal disallowed right near the end actually, for a foul, which was probably correct but a little bit controversial. I don't know if there's any reference to that because I think Pochettino's team play with more energy.
Yep.
It feels like than an Enzo Maresca team, and I think Chelsea just feel a little bit sapped of it at the moment. If Villa have the right energy levels at the weekend, I think they win. And one benefit that you could certainly say is in terms of the attacking positions, they have the ability to change now. You've got debutants last night in Disasi, Asensio, and Rashford all starting their first league game. And players you're bringing off the bench like Jacob Ramsey and Daniel Marlon could be switched and come into the team
It's what we said after the transfer window pod. Their depth is fantastic now, especially in the forward
better.
area. Yeah.
Leon Bailey was unavailable last night. He also has a chance, as it stands, of being available for the weekend. So you might get three of the front four change. So that consequence where they've suffered afterwards, maybe that ability to freshen it up, that might be the route that they go for.
Yeah, perhaps. It's interesting though. Like I do feel the way Villa play with that energy and sometimes leave themselves open in transition and defense. Chelsea have looked a little bit stale, in my opinion. It's like all the possession, all fart no poo, right? I do wonder if there's an element of this game that will actually play into their hands offensively. Like I would not be surprised to see a Desmond in this.
Could do, but I don't think when I think about Sancho and Neto particularly, I don't know if they have the right components to hurt Villa over the top.
I think Neto does. He's someone that I,
Jackson's such a willing runner, like over the shoulder and stuff. You want to go over the top of Villa sometimes. I think
yeah.
Liverpool
Do
were
they have
really keen
anyone
to
that would
do
do
that
that?
yesterday. Well, if it's Palmer and Kunku, they both want to come to the ball.
I think Neto could do that. I think Sancho's someone that strikes me as to ball as well. But I think Neto's got that in him. But yeah, is it enough? I don't know. But yeah, I could see that game being quite open and quite fun to watch, actually.
Yeah, it's a difficult call. I think with Villa's home record, you probably give them the favouritism to get something out of the game. Therefore, if you're on Emery, I don't know if it's worthwhile moving it on. That's my take
Yeah.
at the moment. If people want to chase the bonus, I completely understand that. And I guess those who are on Emery were probably on Moyes before, so you have got good returns out of it as a combination between the two. I would totally get going out bollocks. I'm going to chase one more because even if it's a zero, I'm quite happy with what I got so far. So I think that aspect of it would encourage probably wanting to punt something else, but I'm not sure that it will pay off on the week personally.
Yeah.
I think Villa might win on Saturday.
I think part of it as well is starting to think about 29, right? If people aren't using a chip in that week, and like you said, they've already moved from one assistant manager to another, and we're talking about ifs and buts and maybes, like, is it worth actually using a transfer at the minute on the assistant manager? I think
Depends
that's
what
a
path
consider.
you're on, yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably a consideration as well.
I
I am going to
think
be swinging for a bonus, my friend.
are you on Arse man, are you?
I am indeed. I've been back to back slotting it
Okay.
up,
Talk about that
and
in a second. Just to
yep,
close on Villa, I think it's what their away form is not good. But I think in home games against the better opponents in this league, and Chelsea are still one of them, I think they get themselves in the right mindset and get themselves up for it, and the crowd get up for it. I think Villa, and it's Saturday night as well,
yep.
so it's under the lights. It does have a small impact, I think. So I think Villa might win Saturday. I also think, Clates, that Liverpool might win at the weekend.
Is it at the Etihad?
It is.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not as conclusive in sharing the opinion as I was a few weeks ago.
I think there's possibly a little bit of damage done last night in terms of the manner of how City were beaten. I mean, I never put the game on.
Oh,
I have a,
really?
No, other than the 15 minutes between half time with Villa Liverpool, and City weren't getting anywhere near him at that point. It's comfy as for Madrid. They just looked a level above. I don't want to say that was sad for City. They've obviously got some injury problems. It didn't help losing John Stones after like 8 minutes. I just quite simply look at it and think, as long as Liverpool recover physically well, and I think one of the things Arne Slot has done really well is manage Liverpool on their loads and recovery. 4 day gap, I think, is okay. They then know is obviously Newcastle Wednesday. But I think first and foremost, get something obviously on Saturday and commit to that. They might even, in a weird way, find Newcastle a, a bigger mental challenge, maybe. Because I think if they win on Sunday, you do think actually then from Villa away and City away, 4 points is an absolutely brilliant
Oh, of
return
course. That's yeah.
under that circumstance. I cannot see how City deny Liverpool having really big opportunities in that football match. Cannot see it.
Do you know what? Same, but again, from periods I've seen last night and periods this season, I do think this Liverpool team can be played through. And I think that's where City have their flaws structurally defensively, right? But I think they'll be able to play through Liverpool's thirds pretty easily as well. It's another one, like similar to the Villa Chelsea game. I know they'll be different, but I would not be surprised to see another Desmond in that one. And I can see both teams going and hurting each other. I don't think any of them are going to be resolute defensively. I think Liverpool are obviously better than Man City defensively, but I still think Man City have the ability to go and hurt Liverpool in areas and get into the right spaces that other teams maybe don't hurt Liverpool as much in.
No doubt, no doubt at all. And I think one of the reasons I've kind of never written you off in terms of the title here is you saw it again last night. There are vulnerabilities in that Liverpool team. I think in terms of teams who we've kind of thought would win the league or been ahead at this stage, they're as vulnerable as I've seen any team. That's not to say they're doing badly, they're doing great. I'm just saying when you look at their kind of bigger games this year, conceded two again last night, conceded three at Newcastle, three at Tottenham. Like they can be got at.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they can't. I don't think Liverpool go to City and win 2-0, for example. I think Liverpool go to City and probably win like 3-1 or 3-2 would be more the point. Absolutely, definitely Liverpool could get turned over on Sunday. It's not in question. We don't know if the robot will be available. So
No, what's the
we suspect he probably was injured last night.
yeah, was it a knee injury? I think I read
Well, he
somewhere.
picked
So
something up right at the end of the Newcastle game, didn't he?
yeah, and I've not seen anything in terms of timeline or
And
anything,
it
so we'll
didn't
have to.
look right
No, it
when he
didn't.
did it. There was no one near him. So that needs keeping an eye on. What's your plan with Slot then?
Got two paths, right? One is play it safe-ish. Well, is it safe? Arteta home to West Ham. But like I said, I just want to have fun with this chip, right? It's a bit new. Like I know there's two types of people, right? There's the optimal versus the yeah, I guess the wild card type players. And I think I'm leaning more towards the latter. I just want to have fun with this chip. So I am leaning towards trying to find a bonus. Like you said, could that be Glasner away at Fulham? I really want to go batshit. I want to go rude. I want to do it. And it's not because I've seen some people say, oh, I saw some encouraging signs against Arsenal. It's nothing to do with that. It's just it it's a home fixture. And I don't think it's improbable that they win that. I think they've definitely got a chance. And do you know what? Okay, let me apply some data to this. So I like using probabilities, right? And I've spoken about this
Uh-oh.
account. Here we go.
Rob T's
Confirmation
coming up, is
bias.
he?
Pardon?
Is it Rob T coming
My
up? Is
friend
it?
Rob T,
I mean,
FPL,
he is a brilliant account.
who's probably never heard of me before because I don't think I've ever interacted with him. I use his account, and so I'm looking at the probability odds for the weekend. And I'm looking at some of them. So like Arsenal to win against West Ham, 77%. So fair play. Next biggest is Brighton. But I, again, don't want to play it safe with anyone other than Arsenal. So I'm looking at the bonus ones. Palace to win away at Fulham, 26%. Leicester to win at home against Brentford, 27%. And I mean, it's a third, right? I'm like, I'm conscious. This is such waffle, but I'm just trying to find any way to confirm to myself just go batshit, stick it on. Who cares? It's just a game. Have fun with it, and imagine if Leicester win. Like, because if Arsenal win, I'm going to be happy anyway. I'm going to be there. I'm going to have a great day with my friends. If we win, if Leicester win, I've got no stake in that. Sticking a chip on that could be well fun.
Cody
Hashtag
Gakpo's
logic.
Cody Gakpo's doubtful for the weekend, right? This has nothing to do with it, but kind of does. Would you, if you were wildcarding in game week 27, would you consider Jamie Vardy for your 1 week punt?
That's a great question, you bastard. Um, yeah, I think I would.
Now, Arnie Slot's
I
not
would.
doubtful. We know he's going to
No, I
play,
would
right?
actually. Yeah.
Okay,
Go on,
fine.
score prediction. 3-1 Leicester. Boom. I'm sticking it on.
I think Brentford will go. I think Brentford will go there and win. To be honest,
What am I
I
doing?
don't think any. To be honest, I don't think any of the bonus managers will win this week. But I have no problem with anyone taking that journey and that punt. None whatsoever. I mean, have you considered Slot just to Arteta?
That's what I was saying. Like, there's two routes in my head, right? One is just sticking it with Arteta, or the other is chasing a bonus, and I kind of want to go for fun.
I'm gonna love it when you go Slot to Arteta and then Arsenal don't win and Liverpool do.
I think that's the thing.
Sorry, that would
Do you
make my
know what?
weekend.
That would actually. I think that is enough for me to not go Arteta.
Okay, cool. I wouldn't dig you out, mate. All right, sorry for the disturbance. Someone's trying to cut my power. I'm going to captain Salah this week, Clates.
I think I will be joining you. I was torn between Bumo and you asked if I have Bournemouth players, and I can't remember if that got caught on camera or not, but
No, it
I've got
didn't.
okay, so I've got Clivert, but I think I will be on Salah as well. Bit of a shit week for captaincy, isn't it?
Yeah, Salah, Isak. I guess Haaland if he's available. I don't think you want to punt something the Villa Chelsea game. Feels kind of tough to call. So yeah, Bournemouth players, Bumo, Vissa come into contention a little bit. Yeah, it's quite open, but I just to be honest, just bottom line, I think there'll be goals in City, Liverpool, and his away record as he showed again last night is a fucking joke.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'll go Mo. That'll be me for captaincy. If you're playing Arseman this week, you know what the usual message is here, kids.
Play it your way.
Play it your way. Do you think you win the league, Clay?
No, I
Good.
don't. If we
Right.
if we had our attack,
That's
I
enough.
do you know what? I have seen some Liverpool fans getting a little bit nervous.
Oh,
Um,
no doubt. In a weird way, it's always worse when you're in front.
yeah, definitely. If we had our attack at the minute, I think we would do it.
Who do you think played a nine for you the weekend?
Oh, I'm not as convinced Marino starts as everyone else
Really?
is. Like, it almost feels to me like a weapon, if you can call it a weapon, that you bring on off the bench if you're struggling. Like, you start, because if we're chasing a game, who is more likely to make an impact off the bench, Sterling or Marino? I think Marino. So I think you almost start with the crap guy in Sterling. And if it's not going well, then you do what we did on the weekend rather than deploy the only thing that looks like it could be a
Yeah, but you
solution.
can't
And
always rely on getting those goals late in the game if you need them, mate.
no, I
Wouldn't
know.
it be to start that way and then hopefully get a couple in front and then bring Sterling on later in the game?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that is a flip perspective. Yeah, I'm not sure. I need to think about that because it's, yeah, need to think. I think by tomorrow, when I have a bit more Arsenal chatter in the timeline and stuff, I'll get to a conclusion on it. Right now, I'm like 52-48 on the side that I think it'll be Sterling, Trossard, Nwaneri again versus Marino starting from the off, but that may swing tomorrow.
Okay, Champions League. We should probably start with City. Obviously, lost last night. I think obviously lost John Stones. We mentioned obviously earlier in the game. We mentioned about Haaland, obviously not being involved. I think City at the moment are in a rebuild phase. Clearly, you've got players, and again, I didn't see the game last night, but obviously Kusanov looks like he's played out of position right back. I was worried about him at centre back. Never mind playing against that Vinicius Junior and Mbappe axis. Jesus. Gonzalez obviously played centre midfield. I've heard conflicting reports on how he did. Marmoush, I understand, looked quite lively, obviously off the back of his hat trick at the weekend.
Have you
But
seen
they
Nico Gonzalez's yellow card? I know you said you didn't see much of the
no.
game. Okay, he basically tried to rip off Vinicius Junior's clothes.
Okay,
If you find the
cool.
clip of it, it's quite funny.
Okay, cool. City out, Madrid through. In terms of the games last night, I caught the second half of Borussia Dortmund and Sporting Lisbon, which added to my absolute. Clayton's already laughing; he knows my incredible pain in UCL fantasy this week. Never known a week like it. Finally got some returns coming here in this one, haven't I? Was as Dortmund get a penalty. No, Jurassi misses that as well, just for jokes. My only returnees in the Paris. I had four players in the Paris Saint-Germain Brest game. Yeah, I was going to do a joke then. I'm better
You're
than that.
better than that, Joe.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But the player I captained, Dembele, was the only one who never returned out of the bloody
Me
game.
too. Me too.
Been off my tits all week on this game.
Howie.
Yeah, I got there in the end. And I watched extra time of PSV Juventus, which was quite fun.
I did watch that, to be fair. Yeah.
The first half, particularly, had quite a bit of chances for both teams. I mean, Juventus, yeah, they're nowhere near the force that they've been in years in the past. Tuesday was fun. I watched the last hour of Milan Feyenoord. I then watched the first half of Atalanta pretty much capitulate against Bruges somehow. I don't know how they ended up 3-0 down. They had a moment of it where they hit the post, then it was cleared off the line, and then from the same passage of play, Bruges scored brilliant goal from Jutgla to make
One
it
of the
3-0 on the night.
I don't know if it was for the red or a yellow, but like one of the Atalanta players completely lost his head at one point, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah, blinding. Yeah.
Is that I can't remember if he was the guy that got the red or not, but
Yeah, it was. By this
yeah.
point, though, I was watching the second half of Bayern Munich and Celtic. Celtic obviously put up a great effort, so nearly
Mate,
took Bayern Munich to extra time. Although I wasn't worried for Bayern watching it. Like in the last 10,
no.
15 minutes, I felt their fitness levels were a level above. And if it did go to extra time, they were going to be all right.
Yeah, I was of a similar thought, but earlier in the game, like Celtic had chances, and do you know what? They were playing the ball around really nicely in periods as well. Like to think that they were in the Allianz just kind of playing them. I'm going to say off the park in like a 10, 15 minute spell in the first half. They were
Yeah.
playing really, really nicely. And yeah, there were a couple of decent chances. But yeah, same as you. As it got to later in the game, I was thinking with the extra time, the fitness, the squad depth, it would be too much. But heartbreak for Celtic, that one.
The draw now, to clarify, the draw is on Friday. We now know the either ors of who teams can play, but I think there is one aspect to the draw that people might not be aware of, and I wasn't aware of it till the start of this week
If you
either.
weren't aware, then I won't be. What is it?
I mean, yeah, I'm going to leave you and Suj to a chip strategy podcast really, really soon. So we now know Liverpool will play Paris Saint-Germain or Benfica. Arsenal were going to play one of two Italian teams, but it's now one of two Dutch teams because the two Italian teams went out. Have England wrapped up fifth place yet? Listen, this is a formality that fifth is getting in the Champions League this year. So Arsenal will play PSV or Feyenoord. A Feyenoord, by the way, Clates, who are about to appoint Robin van Persie
I've seen this.
as their,
Narrative's gone a narrative, aren't
yeah,
they?
as their new manager. And by the way, Robin van Persie, I meant to follow up on this last week, but completely forgot. Robin van Persie was the Heerenveen manager when obviously they had the incident with the Fortuna Sittard game a couple of weeks ago, with Sittard having 12 players on the pitch,
I'm sure you
and then
did
they
say that.
scored. Result stands
Ah, okay, that's interesting.
at 2-2. So yeah, fuck that. I'm out. I'm going to Feyenoord. Interesting times. Worth saying. I mean, those two teams, Ajax are top of the Eredivisie at the moment. But good to see a couple of Dutch teams doing really well. And obviously for Aston Villa, their opponents are Dortmund or Bruges. Clayton and I had a big conversation on Tuesday morning about why Villa fans should prefer to get Dortmund rather than Atalanta. That's now in the bin. Bruges looks like a great tie on paper until you remember that Bruges have just beaten Atalanta. They beat Villa in the group stage as well, although that was the Tyrone Mings weird handball incident. I think Villa beat either of them,
I do too.
particularly with the second leg at home.
Yeah, and like we said as well when we spoke about it, I think as a fan, you want that Dortmund trip, right? You
Yeah.
want that game to be the one on the run if you go on. So yeah, good luck to him.
I think so. The bit about the draw you probably didn't know, and I didn't realise, was the draw essentially is only to draw now the playoff teams into the teams that have already moved on from the playoff, so i.e. the top eight, is to draw them into the bracket.
Yeah.
The rest is done. So,
Wait. Okay.
consequence, for example, would you rather play PSV or Feyenoord?
Indifferent, to be honest,
Well, the answer's Feyenoord.
because of the side of the draw that we may be on. Okay, yeah, so that's one that I haven't quite wrapped my head around.
I think so. When you look at the pairings, I'd say they're quite balanced, right? So Liverpool and Barcelona seeded one or two. One will go into one side of the draw, one on the other. You and Inter, fairly balanced, right? Villa and Lille, fairly balanced. Leverkusen and Atletico Madrid, fairly balanced. They'll be split. One of those pairings will go on one side, one will go on the other side. But Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain both lying on one side of the draw. So one
Okay.
side of the draw from the four playoff winners is PSG, Bruges, Real Madrid, and PSV.
Yeah.
Other side is Benfica, Dortmund, Bayern Munich, Feyenoord.
So you want to be on that? Well, I want to be on that side, even if it means a Bayern. The other three.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So I think the better draw for you would be Feyenoord.
Yeah.
By the
Okay,
way,
that
do
makes
you know
sense.
who you play in the quarterfinals?
Yeah, it's one of the Madrids or Leverkusen or Bayern. One of them, I think.
So the side with Feyenoord, you would be on path to meet Bayern Munich or Leverkusen or Atletico if they beat Bayern. On the PSV side, it's Real Madrid or Leverkusen or Atletico.
Yeah.
I tell you, who Real Madrid don't want to get, it's Atletico.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the more they can have a European opponent, I think the better for them.
I think this is one where, especially once the draw is done on Friday, like for visual learners like myself, you'll be able to just see a graphic where it's all kind of plotted. Like, back in the day, we'd see the World Cup draws and everything, and you could
Yeah,
plot everything. You'll be able to see it. And I think it'll be a lot easier to kind of visualize that in people's heads.
absolutely that. Yeah, I think whichever one of Liverpool or Barcelona avoids PSG on Friday really should get to the semi-final. That's how we're going to be able to look at that differently to how we've looked at Champions League games in the past because you never knew who was going to have next. This is one draw now for the rest of the tournament. I'd say Arsenal are pretty much guaranteed a challenging quarter final.
Yep.
That looks like a certainty. And I think you'll definitely be in a quarter final because I don't think you'll have too much trouble with either of them Dutch teams, mate. Particularly with second leg at home.
Yeah, you'd think so. But yeah, I was aware the quarterfinals would be difficult, to be fair, because even when the final match day in the group league phase, whatever it was called, was finished, you could start to see some of the permutations. So bring it on, bring it on.
Yeah, there is a side of the draw where I think it could look quite lopsided, where the draw happens and you go, "Oh, yeah, I think that's going to be a Bayern Munich Barcelona semi-final." I think we'll be able to look at that sort of thing, maybe. I think the Real Madrid side of the draw with PSG is going to be the stronger side and the more difficult to process and get through to the
Yes, the only
final.
other thing on the back of what you just said is teams like Liverpool, Barcelona, Arsenal, Inter, Atletico, Leverkusen, Lille, Villa, they will never play each other until the final if they get there, right? Because of the seedings, the
Yeah,
way they
you
work.
can't play Inter Milan to the final. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely correct. And Liverpool now can't play Barcelona to the final. It is interesting. It does look like that it's worked out that the top two, Liverpool and Barcelona, do in theory have one of them at least is going to have a pretty good run, you would think. And I guess that's the idea behind the league. That's how it should have worked.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm
It's rewarded them.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that it still worked out that way, considering we had teams like City, Bayern, Madrid finishing kind of random places all over the draw, right? There is one more thing I wanted to pick out from the Champions League, and it was an incident in the AC Milan game, which again, to compound my UCL fantasy week, I owned Teo Hernandez, who was sent off. And I'm watching the game live, and the referee's blown. Hernandez plays it past the defender, and it looked to me like the final player got a little nick on the ball, and it went out for a corner. And the referee's whistled his mouth, blown, pointed the other way, and the card's coming out. And I knew he'd already been booked because and he had a clear yellow card for a shirt pull earlier in the game in the first half. And I was like, oh wow, you can't send him off for that. Like, you can't send him off for that because I think he's not dived. I just think the final player's got a touch on the ball. But the reason it looked like that was because Hernandez kind of flicked it up a little bit off the turf, and so the ball took a kind of weird trajectory to the naked eye when you're watching from the side of the pitch. You've seen the replay and you've gone, "Oh my God, what a great call that is from the
Yep.
referee! Absolutely
Spot
spot
on.
on." And this referee, I believe, did the World Cup final. So he's one
Okay.
of the best referees. So before people go, oh my God, the refs in Europe are so much better. Well, yeah, that's meant to be one of the best referees in the world. And well done. He's got the decision right. Absolutely superb call in the San Siro. Home player sent off for diving and absolutely correct. No one could argue it. What I don't understand when we compare certain things is why sometimes we don't help ourselves. So in the Liverpool Wolves game in the Premier League on Sunday, Diogo Jota won a penalty, and at the time, it's similar to this. To the naked eye, first time you saw it, it looks like he's been cleared out. His legs got swept away, definite penalty. You see the replay, and you see, I think it was Agbadu who slid past Jota, and Jota stuck out his left leg to make sure that he made contact with the player. He simulated, he dived, right? We don't have to paint it any differently. He dived. Referee Simon Hooper goes to the monitor, sees that Jota's dived, overturns the decision. Cool. This I have a massive problem with that.
What's what's the issue with it?
Why didn't Jota get booked? We've literally watched video evidence to prove that someone has cheated and we've not punished it.
Yeah, and he did overturn it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the rule. So I haven't actually seen that incident to be fair, so I can't really comment on
There
it.
is
But
no explanation for the way Jota sticks his left foot out other than he is intending to make contact
yeah,
with the
what I don't
player.
understand is if the ref has gone over, looked at it, changed the decision, and come to the conclusion that yeah, cheated or whatever, then why hasn't he booked him? That's
Is
what I
there
don't know.
is there any way that we think the referee could have made the conclusion on that decision and deemed that Jota wasn't trying to go for deception, like Jota slipped or something like that? Is that like a conclusion he could have come to?
Possibly, it's not impossible, is it? I think it's unlikely though. I don't know. It's one I'd need to go and look at it. What do you reckon?
I think the big yeah no I think that he's cheated with this and it's not a go at Jota or Liverpool. I think we've all got players who will do this sort of thing. What I'm saying is we're not doing anything to discourage this. So in the same situation next week, why shouldn't Jota take the same chance and do the same thing again? We know there's no punishment. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? He's not going to get a penalty.
Yeah, so I've got no issue with players that do stuff like that, by the way. It's more I want them to get caught when they do. And
Correct.
like
I don't have a problem. That's why I think the decision in the Milan game was such a brilliant decision. And obviously, from the referee's angle, it was clearer than it was for us. But you still got to be brave enough. You've got to be to send a player off in that circumstance. You've got to be absolutely certain and right. And he was correct. So really well done. I don't mind referees not booking players when they think, well, I'm not sure that he has dived. Like unless you're sure, I don't want you to book the player. But when we're actually literally going back and watching the video evidence, the referee on the pitch has gone back and watched the video evidence and decided he doesn't want to book Jota.
unless, so the Theo Hernandez one, right? He there wasn't actually contact, was there?
No, nothing.
But whereas you said with the Jota one, it sounds like okay, I know he instigated it, but it sounds like there was contact even if he instigated it. Is that
Agbadu slides past him. It's not even one with like even if he'd say it had to hurdle the challenge and went down. There's nothing like that. Jota sticks his leg out towards Agbadu.
like
So I
what
can
Kane
even
used to do
understand if
quite
he
a
had to
bit?
jump off him, he's having to move his straight running line distance. I can understand that. It's not really an explanation for it.
No, like, and what I'm trying to understand is it what like Kane and Vardy used to do, where they used to kind of leave a foot out and fall into someone? Is it like
Yeah.
that? Well, okay? So that's where I think I'm trying to put myself in the referee's head. Is that the difference? Maybe where in Theo Hernandez's one, it's outright diving where there's no contact at all, whereas with the Jota one, maybe in the referee's mind, there's contact which he has instigated rather than it being a dive. Like I don't know if that's maybe the difference.
I think we really should be using video evidence. For me, this is a very, very simple win. We use video evidence after games and we go back and retrospectively punish players. And
Oh,
in this
fuck that.
incident,
You want that?
yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh, nah.
Yeah.
That's the whole re-refereeing football, no?
No, no, no. If people are proved to cheat, if they dive,
Oh, I think that opens a huge rabbit hole on what you then go and re-re. Like I'll never say never. I will be
can't have people diving and keep getting away with there's
no,
no
but then
consequence.
that's a process thing where referees have to take note of how the refs do it in Europe and apply that within the league. I think that's a very dangerous rabbit hole if you start reviewing games after the game and retrospectively doing things because
Or
like
we use
that
the
that's a
VAR
VAR.
upstairs in the game, or do it that way, fine. And then the VAR's got to go, he's dived there, mate. Just get the
Yeah,
card out. And I don't want none of this going to the monitor. You've got the evidence. Stop wasting everyone's time. These players dived. Get your card out, book him. Done.
but even that like that could have been a simple solution there, right? Like he literally went to the monitor. We don't understand why he didn't give the yellow, but that's a very simple fix. Like next time, give the yellow if you believe that it's a yellow, rather than yeah, I don't like that.
Okay, fair enough. We'll differ on that one. But I
Yeah.
think, again, you and I are sitting here moaning about referees. So here comes a little bit of defense of them. At the weekend, Jude Bellingham was sent off for either saying fuck off or fuck you to the referee. Is fuck you a bit more personal? I don't know.
Yes, but
Does it
Eve,
matter?
no. I mean that's the thing. And again, I've got a lot of time for that, ref. I think fair play. I think you're going to get verbal, I don't want to say abuse. You're going to get verbal criticism that sometimes borderlines on abuse. But I think the minute you get into territory of abuse, which swearing at a ref is, I think that crosses the line. And I think, yeah, again, the woke brigade will be out and say, oh, football's gone soft and stuff. But I don't know, like when I grew up watching football, like the first thing I was taught, I played since I was like 3, 4 years old. First thing was respect, right? And I think I used to have quite a bad temper when I played when I was younger, and like, but I would never swear at a referee or anything. And I think that's the thing. We have to be careful with how we treat them. I think they're human beings who have, I've said on pods before, they piss me off. I think some of them are incompetent, but they're human beings that deserve respect regardless. And like, does that stop me from criticizing a referee's performance? Absolutely not. But should it encourage swearing at them and stuff? No, that's not on. And I think this is where like rugby's a great example as a sport in terms of
It's a very interesting point you make about like never swearing at a ref personally. Which got me thinking about refs used to talk to us back in when I was a kid in the 90s, and you'd have refs come and talk to you and be like, before a game, say, like, enjoy the game, no back chat, understand if you're unhappy with something, you appeal for a decision is fine, but swear at me, you're getting sent off. Like,
we still get that. We
and no one dared do it. No
Yeah,
one did.
that's interesting. I kind of just go through the motions when I play, but yeah, the ref still says that when I play every Sunday, and I mean, it goes out of the window. You still get people swearing at them and stuff. But again, I think it's more at the top level. These pros are role models, and I think that's it. Like, I mean, the mentality of some of these players to get them to where they are, like the average Joe like you and I are probably never going to comprehend what goes on in their mind. But I think there is an element of you're a role model sometimes. And yeah, it's respecting the referee. You can lose your temper, you can lose your shit, but I think there is a thing where it borderlines on verbal abuse that is just not on. Yeah, and I respect that ref for how he handled that. If that's what actually happened, then the tale is that Jew told him to either fuck off or said fuck you, right?
Yeah. Bellingham's been given a 2-game ban. I have to say, I think any idea that there was some speculation you'd get a
So
12-game ban. I was
I
like,
don't know what
okay,
that was about.
calm
Yeah.
down. But again, you know what? Punishment, fine. It kind of staggers me a little bit. Again, I think what you use about role models is absolutely correct. Referees don't look like they're enjoying the job. We keep criticizing them. Maybe if they enjoy the job a little bit more, might help without people in their ear all the time. What happened to, I need a captain can speak to the ref? Seems to be a thing that just week on week, I notice 3 or 4 players around the ref again and stuff. It kind of staggers me that in 2025, that he's kind of still okay to give a referee abuse from a footballer on a pitch.
Yeah, but
I don't mind
uh,
appealing the decision, ref, it's a corner, whatever, but there's a way to do it, isn't there? I don't want
but
players not to be able to appeal for decisions,
but do
but
they get abuse? Like, are we blowing it out of proportion based on a couple of isolated incidents? Is where I'm getting at. Like, I think it probably has actually got better if you look at a trend.
But then, obviously, for Jude to feel like he said that, he obviously feels like he's going to get away with it. He's not said it thinking,
I don't know. I
I
think
might get sent off
in
here.
the heat of the
No, I
moment, I
think
don't.
he's probably saying he's probably said every week, and this referee's gone, no, I'm not having it.
Yeah, I think yeah, but is he consciously thinking in that moment of I can say that and get away with it? Probably not. But like you said, it's probably a behaviour thing that hasn't been penalised, so it's just become part of him, right? But yeah, I think good on that ref. I think that yeah, I'm on board with that.
I think I agree with you. I do think it probably is a improving, but I still seen incidents, like I said, we get 3, 4 players around the referee and stuff. Not to the antagonistic way it used to be, say, like with Roy Keane in 2000 or whenever that was. Like we're not talking about that sort of level, but I do think there's a consequence. You ask referees who referee like in Sunday parks and stuff like that, what it's like for them,
Oh,
and
it's
it's a
grim.
knockdown, right? Let's put something in the rules, mate. If you're telling a ref to F off or F you or whichever one it is, you're getting sent off.
Yeah, I'd
Done.
be on board with that.
Swear at a referee, getting sent off.
I really think there is something to look at in rugby and how there is that respect.
100%.
And I know there's a big cultural difference there,
Yeah.
which is so deep rooted that you're never going to change overnight. But like the way the athletes and players respect the referees in rugby is admirable. It really is.
I just think it wouldn't take long to change it. You might have a period where it's like, oh, he's been sent off and I don't understand why. And you find out, yeah, sort the ref. That's it. And if you knew that was a rule, you take it, wouldn't you? And
Of
I'm not
course.
saying players can't swear, etc., right? But it is interesting in rugby. People have followed like a kind of code of conduct for how long, and you see the respect every time. You can see some players are thinking, "I think this ref's a dickhead," but they take it, don't they? They just
And,
take whatever decision is on the chin every time.
and they, unlike footballers, are actually capable of throttling a ref if they wanted, but they don't.
Very true. Right, I've had enough of talking about referees. Euro focus this week takes us to Norway, and I checked with one of our Scandinavian patrons yesterday on the pronunciation, and he said to me, "It's okay." We're talking about Molde FK. You can't just call them Mold because they're not a mold; they're a Molde. They are five-time Norwegian league champions, six times Norwegian Cup winners, although all of these trophies inside roughly the last 30 years or so. Their first Norwegian Cup trophy was in 1994 and their first league title in 2011. So have become one of the biggest clubs in Norway more recently. They also finished second 11 times. So one of only two Norwegian teams to play in UEFA Champions League. The other, Clayton, is
Uh, Bodo?
no,
No,
not the trendy Bodo Glimt. Yes, keep an eye on them in Europa League. They could have a really good path in that, by the way.
I don't know.
Rosenborg.
Ah,
Okay, you're
yeah.
not too young. That's good. Um, the town itself is nicknamed the Town of Roses. It was a name that originated during the era of it being a tourist destination of international fame of the late 19th century. It's located on Molde Fjord, that I'm not going to pronounce correct, which is right next to the Norwegian Sea. It's located on Molde Fjord, an inlet, they call it, an inlet of the Norwegian Sea. I don't know what that means, but the
Not a clue.
stadium is pretty much, yeah, it's right next to the Norwegian Sea, basically. The stadium is called Aker Stadium. It's to the west front of Molde's town centre. I love that.
Oh, what? I think that's probably one of the ones that you see on Twitter, the football pictures that do the rounds with the amazing backgrounds and stuff like that. That's
This is
probably one of
one,
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's an image I've got on YouTube, which is like, oh yeah, wow, that's a very picturesque place to play football. The capacity is 11,249. That's it, despite the fact being a two-tier stadium.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he's just small. It's like 10
Yeah.
rows up a tier, that kind of gig. The stadium was refurbished in 1998 and it was a gift from a local businessman, Kjell Inge Rocker. And the stadium has often picked up the nickname the Rocker Stadion because he's helped fund it and has invested quite heavily in the club. They formerly played at Molde Stadium, a stadium which had a club record attendance of 14,000. If you go and look for this stadium, quite how it ever had 14,000 in there, I'm not quite sure because it just looks like something out of non-league with, the old barrier around the ground. That's it.
Like Enfield Town.
A little bit. I don't know. You ever get 14,000 in there. The club was formed in 1911, was originally known as International rather than Mulder. And it's because where they were, it was deemed that they were kind of like an international team who accepted so many tourists and visitors because obviously the people would come in from the Norwegian Sea. That only lasted 4 years and they were renamed to Mulder in 1915. Sorry. You know any famous players played for Mulder, Clates?
So that's what I think the only one I know is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah.
But like when you said about the five time, was it five titles they won? I don't know why I thought Molde would have had a lot more honors than that. So I don't know. Yeah, when you were talking about their first one in
So
2011, I
they've
think.
they've been right near the top of that league for the majority of recent seasons. They actually finished fifth last year, but in the kind of preceding years had been first or second for a number of consecutive years. But that's been the best sustained period in the club's history.
Yeah,
If you
interesting.
go, to be honest, their history, pre sort of like 1980s, is from a historical point of view, it's not worth looking at unless you're particularly interested in the lower leagues of Norwegian football. Never even like an established top flight team that regularly.
Fair play. Yeah, no, Ollie's the only one that I th was confident in. Are there any others?
Solskjaer, of course, went to Manchester United originally on loan, was what
I
the
did not know
Molde
that.
owner, yeah. He said, yeah, Solskjaer's, that was the first ever managerial loan, to my knowledge. Obviously became permanent a couple of months later when Solskjaer had one hell of a managerial bout.
And Rio
Um,
was saying,
do
let
you
him
rem
sign what he wants.
do you remember Uwe Rosler? Played for
Uh,
Manchester City, German forward.
I'm gonna say no. The name rings a bell, but I couldn't tell you anything about him.
He also has managed Molde. Erling Haaland, you know?
Was he from Molde?
Yeah, he played for a team previously called Brunn, I think. That's not to be confused with Brann Bergen. Um, Yeah, Haaland was there when he was like 16 or so.
Oh, fair play.
Yeah. Mohamed Elyounoussi
Yeah, yeah.
played for
Where's he now, I wonder?
Southampton.
Yeah.
Oh, not sure now, actually. Thanks for the test on that. I feel like he
That's
might
right.
have gone to Feyenoord. I don't know now, actually, but I don't think he's there now. And Chelsea forward Datro Fofana
Ah, oh, yeah, I'm aware of him. I didn't know he was
also
there
played
either.
for them. They've been trying to flog him around several places, including Greece, over the last couple of years. So they finished fifth in the Norwegian league last year. So don't qualify for next year's European competition, unless of course they win the Conference League, which, judging by some of the teams in the competition, they may well do. Except they finished 23rd in the table, which probably gives you an understanding. Yeah, claims like, yeah, okay, really. Finished 23rd in the Conference League, so just about made it through to the playoffs. They also lost in the Norwegian Cup final to the brilliantly named Fredrikstad last year as well. They have only ever had Molde one competitive meeting with an English team in Europe.
Hmm. I'm gonna say Spurs in the Europa.
No, it was Arsenal.
Ah,
Numpsy. They played Arsenal in the 2021 season in Europa League, which I understand why you don't remember because that was COVID.
ah, fair enough.
So they lost 4-1 at the Emirates, and you beat them 3-0 over there as well. I think it's an artificial surface
Interesting.
at
Literally
their
zero
stadium.
recollection of that. Gonna have to go
There,
watch the
there
highlights.
are, I tell you what, you know what my memory's like with Tottenham. If you ask me who Tottenham played in Europe,
In the
like in,
COVID year.
yeah, I'd struggle a little bit, I think.
Yeah, that season is a bit absent from my mind, apart from the meme material that Arsenal gave me.
We
Yeah.
had to play three qualifying games and one legs to qualify for the Europa League that year. And yeah, I would really strike. Plus, it was Mourinho Ball. Yeah, I really would have to have a think about who Tottenham played in Europe that year. They've got one Irishman in their squad, Clayton.
Should I
Um,
know him?
of course, you should.
Ah,
His name's Sean McDermott.
who the hell is that, mate?
No, he was in Arsenal's academy though, so I thought
Oh,
it might have been a name that you'd
not a
heard them.
Scooby.
And that's obviously consequential. And the reason we're talking about Molde now is because they're playing Shamrock Rovers, our friends from over the water in Ireland. We covered Shamrock not too long ago on this section as well. And the first leg was in Norway last week, and Shamrock won by a goal to nil in Norway. Bit of a shocker. Did help that the hosts had a player sent off. The winning goal was scored by Michael Noonan. Want to guess how old Michael Noonan is, Clates?
Let's go for a very solid 28.
He is 16.
Jesus Christ, go on,
Yeah,
Noonan.
started and scored the only goal last week. So Shamrock take a 1-0 lead into that second leg. The winner will play Circle Bruges or Legia Warsaw, or as for the young lady I used to know from Poland, Legia Warszawa, in the next round. And if they're very lucky and make it to the quarterfinals, they might bump into Chelsea
Ouch.
along the path. But probably not. I'm not. I'm not convinced that Molde will turn this around against Shamrock in Ireland. Actually, they have played Irish teams before. They played Dundalk a few years ago, and they did beat Dundalk home and away. But yeah, Shamrock take the lead into that game in the Conference League Thursday night, and I can't wait to see the class teams that remain in that 16-team draw that's on Friday. Chelsea could have quite a tough draw, I think,
Ow, why?
relatively speaking.
Yeah.
I think the teams they can play, it's Betis. I think they
Okay,
could play
they're competent.
Heidenheim, who they did already smash in the group as one of the better ones, and whoever Betis are playing was a half decent team as well. They just seem to land in the same spot. Wouldn't have to be funny if Chelsea went out in the last
I
16 of
mean, yeah,
that.
it would be hilarious, but it's not going to happen, is it?
Chelsea fans will feel the pressure of that competition when they begin to hit the end, I think. Because I think everybody, the way it worked out this year with the new format and the teams that qualified for it, they really should walk into it. I mean, they've walked through the group stage winning 6 games with their second team in every game. But their squad is not as strong now as it was in the first half
Nah,
of the
they'll
season.
still have enough. But you are right. I think, yeah, fans will start to feel it when the pressure is on them and the expectancy is there as well. But they will be all right, I think. Nicely
Uh,
covered.
that's Euro focus. On this day, as I said, Clates, I think I've got a cracker.
I am excited. You said it's before I was born, right?
What year was you born?
95.
This is from 1991. And when I do my searches for what I want to do for on this day, I always start with the 1990-91 season. But the Premier League started in 92-93. But yeah, but that's when I first started going to football regularly was 1990-91 when I was 6/7. So the first thing I do is February 20th, 1991, let's have a look at the results. And I landed here and went, that is it. I don't need to look at anything else. Last Wednesday, we had an absolute classic Merseyside derby to close at Goodison Park, the final ever Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. But ask an Everton or a Liverpool fan what might be the best ever derby at Goodison Park, and they may well tell you that it was this one.
Okay.
This was an FA Cup fifth round replay from the 1990-91 season. And the story here kind of starts 11 days earlier because the two teams met at Anfield in the league and Liverpool won 3-1. The two teams then met the following Sunday, so 3 days before this match, at Anfield. And I remember watching this game and it was shite. It finished 0-0. And of course, back
You
in these
actually remember watching it?
I remember. I just recalled. I remember the first game more than the second. 'Cause I never watched the replay,
Fair play. I'm
which I'll
impressed you
explain.
remember it though.
I'll explain. I don't remember much of the 0-0 draw from night. I just remember it's just one of them back in my mind. I remembered because I remember we were at my dad's friends watching that game.
Oh,
I
nice.
remember, and I just remember it was shit. And it finished
Not so
0-0.
nice.
I suppose when you're 7 years old and you watch a football match that finishes 0-0, you go, it was shit. That's
Yeah.
probably it. Um, these days are very different now with obviously no replays. Back then, right, organise the replay as soon as possible. Replay happens at Goodison Park 3 days later. Unfair to say it was nothing like the first game. Um, there's highlights that I'm going to link into the bio for this. And the first couple of minutes, even though you don't see any goals, is the best bit of the video. Is that there's a bit in the video where they proper just attack at each other. It's like they win the ball back in the edge of the area, they go forward. They win the ball back in the edge of the area, they go forward. It looks like fun. You can feel that typical atmosphere that you'd imagine on occasion like this at Goodison Park. Liverpool take the lead. 37 minutes in. Defensive mistake at the back. Ian Rush goes through, dinks it over Neville Southall. It's cleared off the line. Everton player gets back, clears it off the line, comes back to Peter Beardsley, smashes it back in on the half volley. Liverpool lead. So it's 1-0 at half time. No indication of the chaos that's about to happen, not just in this game, by the way, but in what would follow after the game would finish. So, second half, Howard Kendall brings on Tony Cottee at half time, and he didn't rate Cottee much. Cottee was a good poacher forward, but Kendall wanted Cottee to be more like Ian Rush, who played for the opponent. Ian Rush was also a fantastic goal scorer for Liverpool, one of their greatest ever, but more of kind of a hassler. Cottee was more of the Lineker ilk, just
Okay.
poaching and
Yeah.
around the box. But it wasn't he who would equalise for Everton. 3 minutes into the second half, crossed on the left-hand side. Big Graham Sharp gets up, heads it at the back post. Bruce Grobbelaar gets two hands on it, and it kind of goes through them and drops into the corner. He should do better with it in goal. 1-1. Both teams continue to trade punches at each other until with 20 minutes to go, Peter Beardsley dances through on the edge of the area and smashes Liverpool back in front. He used to have this weird maneuver. This is terrible to explain even on the video, never mind on the audio. But Beardsley used to have this shimmy, and we used to call it the Beardsley shimmy, where he used to sort of like feint with one foot and he would overcompensate his body as if he was going to like bend it. And he'd do the same trick all the time.
How did he not get an ACL doing that?
He used to do the same trick all the time. And he just used to shuffle his body and then just drag it inside. And he just used to do people with it all the time. So he dragged it here onto his weaker foot, powered it in. Brilliant goal. Now the goals are raining in, right? 2 minutes later, Graham Sharp in again on a defensive mistake to make it 2-2. Ball gets flicked on over the top. Neville Southall's punted it. It was one of them when the goalkeeper used to throw it out of his hands and just launch it up in the air, right? Gets flicked on. Steve Nicol, Liverpool defender, and Bruce Grobbelaar are coming towards to meet it. And obviously, these are in the days before the back pass rule.
Ah, of
So
course, yeah.
Grobbelaar should probably stay because Nicol don't look and he thinks Grobbelaar's back there. So Nicol's going to go and pass it back to him. Yeah, but Grobbelaar's coming past him to try and get the ball. Graham Sharp just manages to squeeze it in, make it 2-2. Everton stay on level terms for 4 minutes. Rush heads in to make it 3-2 to Liverpool. And in the 89th minute, Cottee reacts on a through ball from Stuart McCall, nips in behind, scores to make it 3-3 on the night.
Uh,
Pandemonium, people on the pitch, a little bit like last week.
no. I bet the manager was rating him in that moment then, weren't he?
Extra time. We ain't finished yet. Extra time, and John Barnes scores this absolutely brilliant goal, which I think is a shot, but could maybe have been an overhit cross. That would be overly critical. Gets the ball on the left touchline, and it's one of them you'd more associate with modern football, where he's cutting off the left, and he's wrapped it with his right into the far top bin. Right, but you didn't see goals like that back then.
Oh, so he was across.
No, I think he meant it. He's a very iconic goal. I mean, it's so top bin. Gives Liverpool the lead. So Liverpool have now led 4 times. Second half extra time, another defensive mishap. Cottee nips in again, 4-4. That's how it would finish.
Oh, penalties?
No.
What?
Second replay.
Wait, what?
Look at you. What? Clates, back in the days, there were no penalties, mate.
So what? You used to,
You
you
just
could have
played, you just
infinite
kept,
replays.
you just kept playing
How
each
would your
other.
chip planning have worked back then?
Oh, mate, it would have been so much fun. You just kept playing until someone won. This
What do you
was the last ever second replay. Now, this 4-4 was the first replay for clarification. The two teams would meet again in the second replay the following week. And after this, they determined no more second replays. The first replay would have to go to penalties. Because in this season as well, we'd had carnage in other ties. I think Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace and Leeds and Arsenal had played each other 4 times. And what they used to do was he used to do a flip for who was in the second replay. It's like, who's at home now? So he
Oh,
used to do
right.
a coin flip.
Ah,
So Everton won the coin toss, so they were at home again the next week. It didn't like go back to Liverpool. I find that a bit weird that it didn't go back to Liverpool, by the way, but that's how they used to do it. And I think I want to say when you did it with Leeds, I think you had a replay. I think 3 of the 4 games were at Ellen Road. I think
four replays, some of them
so. It
games
was
went
three
to.
replays. Yeah, went 4 games.
Yeah,
And I think the same season. I'm pretty sure Palace and Forest in the third round played each other 4 times as well in the
that
same
is
season. It was either that
insane.
season or the year before.
Wow. And this was the game that made them eventually scrap that rule then, yeah?
Well, the following year was the new Champions League format. Oh, guess
Oh.
what? So European competition was affecting things right back in the 90s. Yes, that really, really happened. But yeah, it was also getting to the point. Well, someone eventually obviously went, well, what if they do just draw with each other 8, 9 times? Like, what are you going to do with a competition? It was a bit silly that it happened, but obviously what they do then, like this replay was 3 days later. So just right, your Premier League games off, push it back, push it back. If you look at the calendar, there's loads of teams played like 2 times in 3 days towards the end
That's
of the season.
hilarious. Is
Loads.
that so when they then scrapped the second replay, is that when penalties came in? Do you know?
Yes. Yeah,
Ah.
had to. Yeah. So that's what I said. They keep playing until someone won. So yeah, it was after this. So this was the last ever second replay. The story though is not so much as well about the second replay. It's what happened 2 days later. And I think this was the first thing I ever remembered about football that wasn't something that happened on the football pitch. Because 2 days later, I remember getting home from school and finding out that Kenny Dalglish had resigned as Liverpool manager. Now, Dalglish had taken over in the mid 80s, was player manager, took Liverpool to their first dub in the 85-86 season, and had obviously been a successful manager, obviously won the league in 88, won the league in 90. Remember, English teams were banned from Europe over that period in the late 80s following the Hazel disaster. So Dalglish had been one of Liverpool's most successful ever managers. This team was beginning to tire and age a little bit, though. The team, for the record, that played at Everton that night: Grobbelaar, Nicol, Hyson, Gary Ablett, who would also play for Everton, David Burrows, who would also play for Everton, Peter Beardsley, who would also play for Everton, Barry Venison, don't think he played for Everton, Jan Molby, Steve Staunton, John Barnes, Ian Rush up front. For the record, the Everton team, Southall, Raymond Atterveld, who's a player I do not remember at all, Martin Keown,
Ah.
Kevin Ratcliffe, David Watson, Andy Hinchcliffe, you hear on commentary quite a bit these days, John Ebrell, Mike Milligan, Pat Nevin. He does lots of radio stuff now. Pat Nevin also played for Chelsea and arguably took the worst penalty ever seen when he was at Chelsea. That's worth a look on YouTube. Mike Newell, and obviously Mike Newell up front with Graham Sharp. But Dalglish resigning was such a shock
Yeah, what?
2 days after this game, he resigned.
Yeah, and you say there were a little bit of that Liverpool team tiring. I mean, what was it? I mean, it came as a shock, right? So I wonder what would have prompted him to do it in that moment.
When I did research for this, and this isn't to scare Manchester City fans, but I could definitely see parallels to what happened to Liverpool that season to what's happening to Manchester City now. I.e., the squad rebuild kind of got left a little bit long. And by the way, what happened for Liverpool afterwards was really bad. Like Liverpool were pretty shit in the 90s. I know there was the odd trophy there, 95 League Cup, but actually the 90s was considering Liverpool had been the power in the 80s, the 90s were a bit of a disaster for Liverpool, pretty much starting at this point here. So Dalglish resigned and he did this really awkward press conference where it was very clear that he didn't want to be there and announced his reasons for resigning was essentially down to stress.
Okay.
Yes, it was a thing back then as well. Reports suggest that Dalglish asked to leave at the end of the previous season, the end of the 89 season. Remember, this is also a man that had to carry the football club through the Hillsborough disaster
Yeah.
as well. Um, I read something that suggested, half in jest but probably part in truth, that I think in the year after the Hillsborough disaster, that Dalglish attended more funerals than he managed football matches. Like he really put himself out for the people of Liverpool, and is obviously held in such high regard because of his footballing ability, but also his care under the circumstances of what happened as well, and still does to this day. It obviously carries with him horrendously. Imagine how he's got to deal with the players
Yeah, of
during that,
course.
had players going through that shock as well. And they played at Sheffield Wednesday not long before this as well and lost and didn't play well. Then there was much debate in terms of whether they should ever have even been in that sort of circumstance, right?
I wonder what would have kept if he wanted to resign the season before. I wonder what the conversation would have been that kept him to continue into that season, which then inevitably ended it with him resigning in February. Intrigued.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know. You can understand why Liverpool want to keep him,
Oh, of course,
but
yeah.
I think, a little bit like you can imagine this, just compared with just had it with Jurgen Klopp last year. I'm tired. Dalglish had regularly over this period in the build up towards this 4-4 draw, been seeking like help in terms of hospital appointments. He was beginning to get blotches on his skin. He wasn't someone who like drank much as a player, but was beginning to drink a little bit more as well. Stress was getting to him, was real, and apparently he'd made the decision before the 4-4. But obviously the media just assumed was like, well, this carnage of a football match has like finished him in terms of I don't want to do this no more.
Yeah.
And obviously him in terms of his career after that break would go on, come back Blackburn, take Blackburn towards the title, still obviously had a successful career and came back and managed Liverpool in 2012, won the League Cup, took them to the FA Cup final as well. Um, but yeah, the suspicion was very much that he resigned because of the football match. That wasn't quite the story, but it was shocking. And obviously the timing of it was, yeah, enough. Now, of course, in terms of the title race, Liverpool are going at it with yourselves. In the league that weekend, Ronnie Moran took charge of the team and they lost to Luton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't imagine that went down well.
Then lost the second replay to Everton, 1-0. Dave Watson scored the only goal, knocked them out. After that, Paul Merson scored the only goal at Anfield in a game that was almost effective for the title. I think you won it by 7 points by the end. That was partly because Liverpool had some very indifferent results in the running. They had a disastrous Easter period where I think they lost to Southampton, lost to QPR, and drew with Coventry in like a 3 game spell in a row. And by that point, it was like Arsenal were gonna, like when you chased down United in '98,
Yeah.
you won that big successive run. But actually, by the time you got towards the end, it was like they're gonna do it
Yeah.
relatively comfortably. I mean, you actually lost 2 games after you won the title, so the actual table that year looked closer than what it was after you'd beat Everton. So you went on to win the title, and Everton successfully made it to the FA Cup quarter final, where they were knocked out by West Ham,
Ha!
second division, West Ham.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And West Ham would go on to play Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup semi-final and got spanked 4-0, which Sudge recalls to this day is the game that made him fall in love with West Ham. Yes, he fell in love with West Ham during a game in which they lost 4-0. Sudge just wanted to support the underdog. Well, what he should have done was watch the earlier kickoff that day because he could have supported the underdog in the semi-final at Wembley, where the mighty Tottenham Hotspur, inspired by Paul Gascoigne, demolished title winning Arsenal, and then obviously went on to beat Forest in the final.
Fair play. Nice trip down memory lane for a
That
lot,
was
I
on
reckon.
this day from 1991. Do watch the highlights of this one. I always tag the highlights into the bio. I've got a little video I'm going to put in. It's only about 9 minutes long. Watch it. It's good.
Will do.
You can feel certain bits of it. You're like, I don't care about these two teams, but you can feel something. It's worth remembering as well at that point, Everton were strong.
Oh, were they? Okay.
In terms of, remember the conversation we had about the Big Six a couple of weeks
Yeah,
ago?
yeah.
We said the original Big Five before the Premier League included Everton. And Everton had won the title in 85 and 87. So across from when Villa won it in 81, I think, up till this point, the title had been won once by yourselves in 89, twice by Everton, and everything else by Liverpool.
Oh,
So
fair
Everton
play.
and Everton also went on to have obviously a terrible and shit 1990s as well. Didn't keep pace.
Lovely stuff. Well covered.
As said, clash of correspondence tomorrow. Fulham versus Crystal Palace with Lewis James and Roy McLoughlin-Dowd. We do believe that the Clayton and James show will probably return to Wednesday next week, but the week after it might be on a Monday because me and Clayton might be trying to fight to avoid each other in the Netherlands. We think subject to Friday's European draws. Thank you very much, Clates. Be nice to each other, everyone. Smash a like, hit the sub, 5-star reviews on the audio go a really long way. Cue music, please, man child.